Hey, so what is going on, everyone? It's me, Mr. Martin, and I felt like just making this vlog, I guess you can say, this discussion, I guess, because this came into my head yesterday, and I wanted to talk about it. So I'm wearing a hat again because it's winter, but I was gonna wear, you know, one of my other hats with a face on it, but I was like, I should probably wear something a bit more serious for this. So today I'm going to be talking about video game addiction, and really, I mean, if it exists, what is it? Why is it? Anything like that. So first off, I mean, it sounds like a silly topic. It's like to gamers and to non-gamers alike, just due to the fact that I had to adjust my hat here, not because of that, but mainly due to the fact that it seems like it's something so simple. And I was really thinking about this last night, and it's like, you know, people who are addicted to video games, if they say that, they probably get laughed at, and you'll probably say something along the lines of, oh, well, you could probably just stop playing or just drop the controller or whatever. And while as that is true, it's really a lifestyle is the thing. And once you get sucked into that, it's hard to do. It's hard to get out of. Now, it sounds like something else I might be comparing it to. Like, you know, they say if you smoke a lot of marijuana or something, it's a lifestyle. That's what you get into. If you're an alcoholic, it's the same thing. You get sucked into that lifestyle and you kind of go into a cycle. And it's that same thing. It's kind of like the thing I'm thinking of is, if you all remember, like, I don't know, like, at least 5 years ago or so, there were those, I don't know, anti-drug commercials, and they had that dog that was going up to that kid who was smoking weed, and then they had, it wasn't spoken, it had, like, the music in the background, like, all the weird music, and then it was a kind of a comic book form, I guess you can say, but the dog was saying stuff like, oh, you haven't been the same since you've been smoking pot, and this kid says, oh, well, I could stop at any time, why not now? I'll do it tomorrow. It's exactly the same thing with video games. Now, maybe it's not, you know, a substance that you're putting into your body or anything like that, although, I don't know, you might be eating a lot of junk food or something while you're playing. But the reason why I say that is because I've seen people who have been in that exact same position, who've been in that frame of denial. This one person I used to know, you know, years ago, I knew him in middle school and high school, but I remember in middle school he played a whole lot of World of Warcraft, and that is I hate citing that as a source because everyone uses it, but it is like the one game out there that is like crack. Like the two games that are out there that are like that are World of Warcraft, but kind of more leaning towards League of Legends now in 2013, 2014. But what ended up happening was he was playing a lot of World of Warcraft, and he kept convincing me to try it, and he's saying, oh, you're not going to get addicted to it, it's fine, it's fine. And to this day, I still have never played it, just because I saw people like him, and I'm like, you know what, it's probably a good game, but I don't want anything to do with it. I'm fine. I'm happy as I am right now. But what happened was he was like that. He was in that mindset. And then in high school, he stopped playing it because he got bored of it. Then when he looked back, he's like, yeah, you know, I was really addicted to it. But then he went back into it. And the problem was he was using excuses for it because he had some friends that he was playing online with, and he was saying, oh, well, you know, I'm just using it to play online with them because they all play it, so I'm going to play with them. And then he was telling me that I should play it again and convincing me to get it and all that. And he was saying, oh, well, Danny, you don't have an excuse. You have a computer that can handle it. You have the money to pay for the subscription and all that. You're not going to get addicted. While as, here's the kicker, while he was telling me all this over the phone, he was playing World of Warcraft, and I was like, really? Because you've been playing that, what, for how long? What, 4 or 5 hours straight now? And he's like, oh, well, no, I'm just doing that because we're in this mission right now, and because my friends aren't, yeah, see, and that's the same thing. You're going to be making up excuses for that. And the problem is, with Blizzard is really good with things like that, and I'm not saying it's only Blizzard, because no, the game developers are doing what they are supposed to do. They're supposed to make a kick-ass game, a kick-ass product that people are supposed to love. But I experienced that as well at one point. When I had Diablo 3, pretty much I couldn't stop playing it until I finished it. And it was kind of the same thing a lot of people with World of Warcraft were experiencing, where, you know, it was a real good time waster and all that, and you could kill 4 or 5 hours a time and it felt like 30 minutes. To the point where it was a bit scary. So after I finished up Diablo 3, I remember I was like, yeah, you know, I'm good. I'm good. It was a good game, but don't feel like playing it again, but then again, didn't have a lot of replayability to me, unfortunately. Well, maybe that might be fortune as well at the same time. But it's things like that that really give you the illusion, I guess you can say, that it really is an addiction, but people think it's silly because, I mean, what are you doing? You're sitting at your computer, you're pressing buttons. The reason why people think it's a silly addiction and it might not be an addiction or it's just something that's made up in your head is because You're not putting a needle into your arm. You're not lighting up and smoking anything. You're playing a game. That's it. And the problem is, we live in a society where you could really become addicted to anything. Just because you can really pull a diagnosis out of your ass at this point if you're qualified enough or if you feel like you're smart enough. But also at the same time, it's just we've kind of been conditioned to do that. We have gambling addictions. The thing that's really coming to mind right now, you know, the kid who I don't know if I think he was underage when he was drinking. I don't know if he was under 18 or not, and I don't know his name, but he doesn't even deserve to be named. It was the whole affluenza news thing that was out recently. In case you don't know, this kid was drunk. He was driving his nice, expensive truck that his parents obviously paid for. And then he ended up crashing. He killed 4 people. He wounded 2 others. Yet he is on 10 years probation and he's going to rehab. But not like rehab like AA rehab I'm talking about. No. I'm talking about a real nice rehab where he gets to go and do arts and crafts and hang out with horses and ride them and take care of them and all that stuff. Because he was diagnosed, in the court of law, he was diagnosed with affluenza, which they tried to combine the words, you know, influenza and affluent there. You know, he came from such an affluent background where he had all these riches provided to him and he didn't have to work, where I guess we're supposed to feel sorry for him because he's so rich and he doesn't understand the value of human lives. And he's sick with that, just like the influenza makes you sick. So he is mentally sick from being, I'm done. I can't describe it anymore. But it's things like that that make it so easy to pass. And if it makes sense to some people, you know, it's going to make sense to a lot more people. People will convince themselves that's the thing that exists. Which others might think you're doing the same thing with video game addiction and such. But, I mean, it is what it is, I guess. Now, what about getting into it or even getting out of it? Well, I hate using this phrase, but honestly, getting a life really does help. I was actually at that phase at one point, but you got to think about it like this. I was 14, 15 at the time. When I was 16, I actually pretty much stopped playing for a few years. Just completely. I completely stopped playing games, but that's a whole other commentary I can get into because there's some good reasons behind that. But what happened was, like, from 14 to 16, I was playing a lot. And to the point now where I'm thinking back, I'm like, wow, that was bad. You might be asking, how bad was it? Well, I'll put it like this. When I bought Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, I put 60 hours into it within a week. I don't know if I should be proud of that or sad of that fact, but that's how bad it was. But then again, at that point in time, I really wasn't doing anything. I didn't have a job. All my friends, you know, we all lived a few miles away from each other. And if you're at that age, you know, you can't drive or anything like that. You don't have a license. You have to coordinate with your parents and all that. And it just gets all sorts of annoying. But then the friend thing came into it. And I was thinking at the time, well, all my friends are on Xbox Live. You know, this will work. This will suffice. But I really didn't let it get in the way of schoolwork and such. But I was playing a hell of a lot of video games. I played a lot of titles. That's like the most I played at one point, at any point in my life. And now it takes me a lot longer to finish up a game, if any. But that's what was going on. I didn't have anything that was going on in my life, so I had things to fill up. But then again, you know, when real life hit, I was able to pull back. And that's the thing, you have to have that characteristic. You have to be that type of person that knows, you know, when enough is enough and when to pull back, when to pull out, and really gauge what's going to be appropriate and what's not for yourself. And really getting out of that, yes, you might have to get out of your comfort zone because you get stuck in a cycle. And the reason why I was talking about that before is because one thing that kind of can be attributed at times, one thing that makes some people fall into this could be depression as well. You know, some people, they could be depressed, they don't realize it, but they don't want to get into drinking, they don't want to get into drugs, but, you know, they start playing video games, they have fun, it's a nice world they can get lost in, and then they're spending 12, 14 hours a day on it. Lots of people have done that. Depression is actually a drug that you can get sucked into. And in case you don't know, I did psychology for a bit. I'm not trying to come above anyone and say, oh yeah, I know psych. No, I don't. But it was just something I did in my free time, and I thought it was fun to do. One thing with psychology that you will learn is that depression is actually stemming from a chemical that your brain produces. When it produces that, you get stuck into that cycle. And if you're not breaking out of that cycle, your brain becomes dependent on that chemical that it is producing. That is why it's so hard to break out of the depression cycle. That's why it's so hard to relapse, because, it's a internal drug effect almost, you can say, if you simplify it a little bit like that. So a lot of people don't realize that, but that can attribute to things. But aside from that, mainly, as I was saying, people make up excuses. People get into this deep web of video game, electronic addiction, and all that. And, some people can feel for them, and others can't. And, I feel like anything like that, like video games and such, they're fine, as long as you recognize, when it is appropriate to play, when it isn't, as I said, but also use the right excuses on it. Like, for example, years ago, my excuse was, oh, all my friends are on there. It's a good way to connect. While is that still true, now I have friends that we contact each other through other methods. That's fine. Like, Xbox Live, that's going to be the last way we contact each other. In fact, we might be texting or calling to coordinate something like that. Like one of my buddies, Tanner, up in Canada. He's one of my best friends, and the way we talk is, we talk primarily, through texting and such. But just because he's up there, I can't really, it's kind of hard to call when I'm on a US plan and such. But, we'll have a few free hours, and we'll try and kind of figure it out and be like, hey, what are you getting on? Are you going to get on this day, this time? What do you want to do? What game do you want to play? We'll coordinate things like that, and then we'll hop on and we'll start playing. So for that, it's kind of one of those moments where it's even better when you start running out of time to play games, just because it makes that moment, those hours, that much better. When, you're hanging out, you're catching up with friends, and you're kicking some ass while playing the game. I remember Johnny Guns, he even told me before, he was saying that, because he lives in Arizona, he said he has a lot of friends up in New York, and he doesn't have that much time to play right now, but whenever he does hop on, if he hops on Call of Duty, Battlefield, League of Legends, whatever it is, if he connects with some friends back in New York, that's 2-3 hours where he can screw around with his friends again. So with that, I could understand. But if you're making it an everyday thing, then that's where you're going to have the issue and such. I want to cut off this commentary. I went off and over, a little more than 5 minutes than I intended to. But this was the last thing I want to bring up as well. Sometimes you really need a rude awakening to quit. And I remember there was one person who he left a comment on a site, and I saw this and I thought of it, and I was just like, wow, that's crazy, because I had talked about this with my friend, with my parents before, and some family friends and we were all talking about it, and my parents was like, really? Like, you don't get addicted to games? And my family friend was saying, yeah, you can. I've seen, like, we started talking about World of Warcraft, and she was saying, yeah, well, there's been marriages that have been broken up because of it. And then I brought this up, and it just kind of made everyone, really think about it. There was one guy who, he said he was playing World of Warcraft a lot. Like, 8, 10, 12 hours a day. And he was playing the game one day, and then one of the people in his guild suddenly disconnected and reconnected. So he saw the notifications, and he looked, he's like, huh, that's really strange, what's going on? So he looks over at his player card. Apparently, I'm probably messing up the terms because I've never played the game. Apparently, what scared him and really, jolted him and kind of made him restart his life was he opened up this guy's player card and found out that this guy did not have a connection issue. This guy had actually logged off, went to work for 8 hours, came back to his computer, and logged back in. So this guy had gone. He had gone to his workplace for 8 hours and came back. Yet to the guy playing, the guy on the other side of the computer screen, he was so involved in his game, so enthralled with it, so deep into it, that it literally felt like half a second, 2 seconds. Now that's scary. Now I hope it hasn't gotten to the point of that for any of you all. Because, hey, video games are awesome and such, but having them in small amounts, controlling yourself, that's the key to it. I mean, there's a lot of awesome stuff you can do out in life. I'd recommend doing it. Anyways, this is Mr. Mario, signing off. Thank you for watching, everyone.